So today I wanted to make this more interactive. As you know, I've been making a challenge for myself, and the challenge that I've been doing for myself is to try to make sure that I do as many challenges, speaking challenges, as possible before my birthday, which now we're in June, so now we're in my birthday month, and I'm so excited about that. But I wanted to do more of an interactive video today because usually I do videos that are earlier on, and I know people are at work, so I wanted to do a video that was more during lunchtime so people could join. And as many of you know, I've started a new podcast called Letters from Mars Podcast. And this week, the theme of my podcast is all about relationships. But not just the idea of a relationship, but more so the misconceptions of relationships, right? The idea of what a relationship is supposed to be like, what a relationship should feel like, what a relationship is expected to be. And I think a lot of us have these expectations about what a relationship is supposed to be, and those expectations get in the way of our ability to have a healthy, real, communication-based relationship, you know? And so I just wanted to talk about some of those things today. I wanted to talk about some of the things I've experienced in the different relationships that I've been in. And so if you're joining this live with me, hi. If you're joining this live, watching it on the replay, hi. But I think it's really important to just talk about some things that come up when you're in a long-term relationship. I think that with the introduction of a lot of apps, right? Like, we don't have to talk as much. So we do a lot of swiping, or we do a lot of texting, but we don't learn how to have face-to-face conversations. And then when it comes to the awkward part of the actual dating, it can be, it can be kind of intimidating, right? And we find ourselves sometimes putting ourselves into situations when we're dating where we already have a feeling about somebody. You have a feeling about somebody, and you feel like the moment that they walk up, you're like, this is not going to be the right person for me, right? I've had those experiences many times. But you have that feeling and you feel that energy right away. That is the same feeling of having healthy boundaries, And when we start dating, a lot of times we get red flags about things. A lot of times we get indications from the universe about this person may not be a good match for me. This person may have ideas about a relationship that are way different from my ideas of a relationship, and I don't think this is going to be the right fit for me. I don't think this is going to be the right person for me, right? But what do? We keep dating them anyway. And then we get into these relationships that we know aren't right for us, but we stay in them anyway. And a lot of the times we stay in relationships anyway, even when they're not healthy for us, because we feel like, well, it's easier than being single, or, well, I put a lot of time into this relationship, or, well, they're a good person. There's certain things about them that I like. And there's two ways to look at that in my mind. The first way to look at it is the fact that if you're in a relationship where you don't feel quite right, or you don't feel like you can fully be yourself with the person, or you don't feel like your ideas and your values mesh well with the other person, there's several things you can do there, right? It's like, one, you can make a decision right then and there. Hey, you know what? This person and I have totally different views about what we want in our relationship, so I'm just going to kind of leave it alone at this point before we get too involved. I'm going to walk away, right? Because maybe you have a set of things that you know you've marked out as super important for you and what matters to you. I call those non-negotiables that you're just not willing to let go of. And I say that loosely, not as in you're too attached to let go, but just you're not willing to let someone overstep those healthy boundaries that you set for yourself. And I live in New York, so you're gonna hear the train throughout this video. But you know, you haven't set you've set healthy boundaries for yourself, and you don't want to overstep that. And so you make a decision right then and there that, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna let this one go, you know? So there's that option. And then there's the option that I feel like most people don't do. And that option is to actually sit face to face with the person and talk about what your boundaries are, what your non-negotiables are, what you really want out of a relationship. That's the more challenging road, but that's the more healthy approach, right, to dating. I remember, because nobody really teaches you, honestly, how to date, right? Like, nobody really teaches you how to date. I mean, you know, you can watch movies, you may learn from your other friends, but at the end of the day, I mean, we're all kind of in this together where we're trying to figure out the magic of dating. We're trying to figure out how to have a successful relationship, because it's not something that comes naturally. Even if you grew up watching your parents in a successful relationship, you still have to learn what that means for you, for yourself, right? Because maybe the things that your mom and dad put up with, or whomever raised you, your guardians, put up with, to have the relationship that they have, are things that you're not willing to put up with, honey. That's the real tea. And so when we think about relationships, when we think about having a dialogue about and a conversation about what we want in relationships, it's really important to first know what you want for you. You know, like, when I first, so I'll talk about my own personal experience. When I first started dating, like in my 20s, not in my like high school, because I had no idea what I was doing, and I still had no idea what I was doing in my 20s. But when I started dating in my 20s, I only did it for a brief time. And I was in a series of long-term relationships. So my first relationship was 2 years, and then I was in another relationship for almost 5 years. And then when I got out of my relationship that was 5 years long, I really felt like I had no idea how to date as an adult, because I had been in relationships for my whole 20s until I was like about almost 29 years old, that I didn't really know what to do. And I remember going on dates, and the women I would go on dates with would say stuff like, "What do you want out of this?" And I would literally say, "What do you want out of this?" Because I had not thought of at all like what I really wanted out of a relationship, you know? And so I really had to do soul searching in order for me to discover what it was I was looking for in a relationship. And that took a lot of work, personal work, in order for me to be able to start successfully dating. And it's not something that happens overnight, honey. You know what I mean? Like, I had to go through a lot in terms of rediscovering who I was outside of a relationship in order for me to start being a good dater, in order for me in my current relationship to be a better partner. But it took a lot of discussions with myself, you know? So, in order for us to start to have healthy relationships, I really think that at the core is we need to have healthy relationships with ourselves, and we have to know ourselves really well. Because if we don't know ourselves well enough, how can we really explain or start to communicate about how we're feeling? You know, another topic in relationships that always comes up is once you get into a relationship, right? How do you maintain your individuality? How do you become a couple and an individual? Because I really think, and when I talk about it with my partner, I really think that it's not just like you and your partner. It's like you, your partner, and your relationship are three different people. And you're trying to work through all of that together, right? You, your relationship, and your partner are three different people, and you're trying to marry all those things together successfully. And I remember when I was working at my last job, I met this couple, and they have been married for a really long time. And I always ask couples who've been married, for 50 years, 60 years, what do they recommend to newer couples? Because, they have the wisdom. And the interesting thing that they said was have a lot of space. Take a lot of time away from each other. And I remember listening to that, and I was like, okay. I mean, because the idea in my mind was like, you want to be with your partner 24/7. You want to spend time with your partner 24/7. But it's actually really awesome to think about that concept, right? If you're in a long-term relationship and you live with your partner and you love your partner and you spend time together, it's also just important to nurture the relationship that you have with yourself. Right? Because again, it's like three different people. It's your partner, you, and your relationship. And all those three people have to have their own relationship with themselves, right? So the relationship itself has to develop its own successful relationship, and each of the partners in that relationship have to develop their own relationship with themselves. And if all those three things aren't cohesively working together, I feel like that's when people in a relationship start to feel that they're not seen, or start to feel that they need space. And this idea of needing space is normal. It's normal to want to have space, to want to be alone, to want to spend time on your own or spend time with your friends. I remember my early 20s, my first relationships, was like, we did everything together. And even when I would try to go and see my friends, my partner would come with me. And so there was essentially no time where I had time to be alone, right? To think on my own, to develop my own thoughts. You need that in order to have a healthy relationship. There's nothing wrong with that. It's very healthy. So make sure when you are in your relationships, and this can be family, friends, romantic, whatever, but make sure when you are in your relationships, you are taking time for you, and you're taking time to breathe, and you're taking time to grow on your own. Because when you do that, when you nurture yourself, right, your cup runneth over with love, and you're able to give that to your partner, to your friends, to your family, whomever. So when you think about being in a relationship and also being an individual in that relationship, take time for yourself. Take time away from your partner. If you got to pencil that into your calendar, do that. For me and my partner, we, like right now, she's home and I'm home. But we're in different places. And we're doing different things. right? Even though we're home together. It's important for us to really make sure we have open dialogue about what our needs are, right? And if we don't have an open dialogue about what our needs are, how can we continually have a successful relationship? So I would love to hear from you. What are some things that you have done in your own relationships with your partner, with your family, with your friends, with yourself to set healthy boundaries, but also to make sure that you have your own individuality? That's important. That's key. I think in terms of healthy boundaries, it's also really important to be able to articulate how you feel and to know when it's time to have a conversation, keep going, and when it's time to take some space away from that conversation, when it's time to express yourself, and when it's time to just have some silence. I heard this talk, and the person was saying, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, then let it go. I mean, it sounds easier, right, than it is. But it's true, right? If it's not going to matter in 5 years, why argue about it? There's so much stuff that we can hold on to and harbor. I think the most important, the most healthiest thing you can do in a partnership is to have continuous dialogue. So make sure you are having continuous dialogue with your partner. Make sure that you are always talking about how you feel. Because when you do that, you open the door to even healthier, more loving, more open relationship. So on my podcast this week, I'm going to be talking all about my own experiences with relationships. And if you have any comments, any questions, anything that you'd like me to talk about, anything that you'd like me to discuss or explore or research around the idea of relationships and healthy boundaries and open communication in relationships, write it in the comments. I want to hear from you. I want to know how you feel about it. I want to know what your experience has been. Relationships are at the foundation of our lives. They are at the keystone of what makes us human, our interaction with each other, our interactions with ourselves as individuals. So I want to hear from you this week. What are some things that have helped you along your journey towards healthy relationships? Thank you for listening. Have a beautiful, amazing day. I appreciate you. And remember, keep an open dialogue. Keep talking about what you need to talk about and let people know how you feel. Your relationship with yourself is at the core of that. If you can't have a solid relationship with yourself, if you can't be honest with yourself, if you can't be alone with yourself, you got to really ask yourself why. And before I go, I'll say one thing that's really helped me to open up to myself about my own relationship with myself, my own boundaries, is journal writing. If you need help just opening up, first start by writing in a journal. Write your thoughts out. It makes them real. It makes them real. Have a beautiful day. Remember, the best relationship you can have is the relationship you start having with yourself. Enjoy your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye. Thanks for watching.